Hello, everybody. Jonathan Pulley here with West Coast Weather. Today is January 21st, and we're going to talk about a series of weather systems that are going to start impacting the West Coast over the next week or so. There's potential for some atmospheric rivers as we go through later this coming week and into next weekend as well. There's going to be plenty of rain. There's going to be possible flash flooding issues for parts of the West Coast, especially over the next couple of days for northern and central California and parts of the southwest Oregon coastline. Then it looks like snow levels are going to rise up well over 6,000 feet potentially this coming weekend with the atmospheric rivers. So that's not going to be very good for the snowpack up there, but hopefully it doesn't do too much damage. If everybody just finds these videos informative and enjoyable, just please consider hitting the like button, subscribe buttons down below. It helps the channel out and helps get the algorithm to post the video out to more people, so it's much appreciated. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Now we're looking at the general ridge and trough positions on the European model on the left and the GFS model on the right. You can see that this is British Columbia over here, Washington, Oregon, California. Here's Alaska up here. Here's the rest of the North America. And you can see the general ridging and kind of like a storm train setup coming right into the West Coast as we play this through. If we continue to play this through, you can see that another system starts impacting the area and moving through as we go through the Tuesday and Wednesday time frame, and this kind of moves out into the southwest United States, maybe bring some precipitation to parts of Arizona and Utah. But then you can see right on its heels another system starting to come into the Pacific Northwest. This will bring a weak frontal system in the parts of California and much of the West Coast as well, bring precipitation and some higher elevation mountain snowfall to parts of the Cascades. But then you can see the models start building this ridge in, but you can see that this trough is not too far off the coast, and this is going to lead to a potential for a moisture transport right into parts of southwest BC and the Pacific Northwest. Just exactly how this potential atmospheric river sets up is still in question. Thankfully, it's not looking as impactful as some of the models were showing a couple days ago, but could still cause some isolated flooding issues. Now, taking a closer look at things, here's British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, California. This is looking at precipitation water anomaly, so basically how much moisture there is in the atmosphere compared to normal. Reds are above average, blues and such are below average. And you can see that as we go through this week, you can see the continued systems moving into the region, bring some moist and moderate Pacific air over the West Coast. But then you can see as we go through this weekend, you can see this large fetch of moisture that just slams into the Cascades, and it kind of is a prolonged event. But then you can see it starts pouring up towards north and brings most of the precipitation off the Washington, Oregon coastlines and more into central BC. This would be more favorable for less flooding potential, but still we're going to get a good 24 to 48 hours of rainfall that could lead to some runoff issues as we have a lot of fresh snowpack as well. So definitely gonna have to keep an eye on that. Now looking at 700 millibar temperatures in Celsius, you can see this is about 10,000 feet in the area. So we play this through, you can see that snow levels are well below 10,000 feet. But look as we go through later this coming weekend, you can see that the freezing level gets all the way above 10,000 feet potentially as that atmospheric river drives north. So this could lead to some melting issues in the snowpack and such. And most of the snow levels later this week are going to be well over 6,000 feet in elevation. So really only the higher tops of the mountains are going to be getting snowfall. Now looking at the atmospheric river forecast, you can see that the European model shows a potential for a category 2 atmospheric river over much of Washington and Oregon as we go through later this weekend. So definitely a potential impactful weather system. Now looking at 6-hour precipitation type and sea level pressure, we can kind of generally see one of the best times for precipitation. So over the next day or so, going later into Monday night, you can see the system kind of glides through, but there's going to be some residual showers over the Cascades and some of the lowlands of western Washington and Oregon and southwest BC. But Tuesday's kind of a break, especially for California. But then you can see the next system right on its heels, a relatively strong low pressure system off the Vancouver Island coastline. Not going to be really any wind potential, maybe some breezy winds on the coastline, but you can see it brings a frontal system all the way down through California, bring some precipitation over the area from later on Wednesday into the first half of Thursday. But then you can see right on its heels is that atmospheric river aimed right at Washington, Oregon, parts of Northern California, and much of Southwest BC. Probably bringing out some potential snowfall to up towards Whistler if the snow levels can stay low enough. But then you can see the second kind of atmospheric river later on Sunday, potentially, that models have been honing in on. But it's been kind of starting to look more like it's going to orientate northward, which is going to be better for places along Southwest BC, Washington, Oregon, and less flooding potential. But that first atmospheric river is still going to be impactful. And then potential for some more systems as we go through the 10-day time frame. Now look at the National Blended Models total precipitation in inches. If we just let this play out, you can see all the precipitation building over the region. As we look at the 10-day totals, you can see totals maybe Seattle approaching 4 to 5 inches of rain over the next 10 days. Similar for Portland. The coastline may be approaching 5 to 7 inches in some of the especially some of the coastal mountain ranges. It's showing the Olympic Mountains potentially getting up towards 20 inches of rain. I don't know if the Olympics will get that much, but that's why it's a rainforest out there. And Vancouver Island's one of the rainiest places in the world, and you can definitely see this on the model right now. We can see some pretty impactful precipitation moving all the way down to Southern California, with maybe Los Angeles getting 1 to 2 inches of rain over the next 10 days. And also Northern California and the Bay Area approaching over 2 inches in spots, especially some of the Sierra Nevadas and parts of the northern coastal ranges of California. Now looking at the total snow in inches on the National Blended Models, if we play this out, you can see there's not going to be a ton of snow, except maybe in some of the higher elevations of Southwest BC, where a couple of feet of snow may be possible over the next 10 days, especially if you go inland as well and towards the some of the Rocky Mountains over in eastern British Columbia and western Alberta. We can see over the next 10 days some snow possible for the Sierra Nevada, but really anything is really nice to have this time of the year, but it would be nice if the snow levels were a bit lower. Now looking at daily max 2-meter temperatures on the National Blended Models, you can see temperatures starting to get over 50 degrees for Portland and Seattle, which is pretty crazy to think that we were in the teens and with highs well below freezing last weekend. But it's kind of like a mini heat wave. But if we could go all the way through this week, you can see temperatures generally getting into the highs into the 50s for Western Washington and Oregon. You can see still 30s for high temperatures for much of Eastern Washington and Eastern Oregon. You can see some high temperatures getting up towards into the 60s for parts of Central California and some of those valleys, and getting up towards 70 degrees in some of those deserts in the Southwest United States. But as we go through the Friday, the Saturday, and Sunday timeframe, as that atmospheric river kind of moves north, you can see some temperatures starting to approach almost 60 degrees. And this is the National Blended Model. So this is taking an average of multiple models, and it's still approaching 60 degrees. So almost kind of like a mini heat wave coming in possibly later this weekend. And now, looking at a nice graph from the National Weather Service of Spokane, Washington, they were getting some periods of freezing rain and ice pellets last night, and so just be careful if you're out there. Always be careful on the sidewalks and roadways. It's kind of really hard to see if the sidewalk is just wet or if it's frozen. So just be extra careful out there over the next day or so. And there's also the excessive rainfall outlook over the next couple days for parts of Southwest Oregon and Northern and Central California. You can see that there's some marginal and slight risks up for the next couple of days. So be careful for some heavy rainfall through Sunday potentially. And there's going to be some potential for some isolated flash flooding issues. And looking at the precipitation forecast from the National Weather Service of Sacramento, you can see generally most of the lowlands in California getting generally like a ½ inch to 2 inches, potentially some of the mountains getting over 2 to 4 inches potentially as well. So definitely some pretty good precipitation for California standards. And there's also going to be some potential for some gusty winds as we go through later today into tomorrow, with some gusts maybe approaching 30 to 45 miles per hour. And you can see the National Weather Service of San Francisco also shows the potential for some gusty winds 30 to 45 miles per hour for the Bay Area and Central Coastline, especially the coastal areas in that higher elevation tonight through Monday morning. And there's also the excessive rainfall outlook that goes all the way down past San Francisco, potential for some isolated flash flooding issues. So just be careful with that and never drive over flooded roadways. And also the rain forecast from the National Weather Service of Los Angeles down there. You can see that San Luis Obispo and Los Angeles counties and Santa Barbara counties are going to be getting maybe one to 2.5 inches of rain over the first half of this week, which is pretty decent rainfall amounts for down there. Now, looking at the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, you can see that for the January 26th through the 30th time frame, they're generally showing above average precipitation for much of the Pacific Northwest, including parts of Northern California, as some of those systems look to start aiming farther north as we go through later next week. And then potential for drier than normal conditions for Southern California as those systems go a little farther north of them. Now looking at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, this goes from January 28th through February 3rd, and you can see above average temperatures reigning over much of the region. And you see 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook also showing potential for even more systems as we go through later January in the early February. So a lot to continue to look at over the next week or two. Well, that's it for this video. Some potential for some heavy rainfall over much of the West Coast over through this next week or so, with potential for an atmospheric river or two coming later this week and into next week. And potentially snow levels are going to get pretty high, so there's going to be some runoff issues as we have that fresh snowfall from the past Arctic air and such. So just please don't drive over any flooded roadways, turn around, don't drown, as the National Weather Service usually says. So take care, God bless, and I'll talk to everybody in the next video.